What is up, everyone? I am in training for a brand new airplane. And when I say brand new, I mean the thing hasn't even been built yet. Well, it's being finished right now. It is a brand new Citation Longitude. And somehow I was one of the pilots lucky enough to get selected on it. Super excited about that. So I will be the captain on the new Citation Longitude. Because I'm in training right now, I figure I will give you guys a glimpse into what it's like to go to initial training. I am here north of Tampa, technically in Lutz, Florida. If anyone was thinking about going on vacation to Lutz, I would suggest not. Tampa is a cool place. But I am actually just finishing up. This is the day before my check ride. So I have been here now for 17 days. The airline guys that might watch this video are wishing their initials were this short. Usually airline initials are 2 months. The training we go through is very rigorous. It's long days. It's really good information. We use the full motion flight simulators, so we get to do things in there that we would never get to be able to do in the airplane for safety reasons. So stick around and I'll show you and tell you what training is like. Let me start by introducing myself. If you have not watched some of my other videos or don't know me, my name is Michael. I am a professional pilot, fly for a charter company based in Las Vegas. And I've been flying some pretty darn sweet airplanes. Before this Longitude, I have been mostly flying a Citation XLS Plus, and then as well as the 525 series Citation. So we had a couple M2s and CJ3 Pluses, which are great, nice new airplanes. Before that, I was flying a Hawker 900 XP, another great airplane, but this Longitude is going to be the biggest airplane that I have ever flown. Airplanes are usually classified by their weight and how big their cabin is. The heaviest airplane I've flown before this was the Hawker that had a maximum takeoff weight of around 28,000 pounds, and this airplane is sitting about 39,500 for its maximum takeoff weight. So lots of range. It's about 3,500 nautical mile range, which is about double what I'm currently flying. It's faster, it climbs better, it has more advanced systems. It is a really awesome airplane. If you back up about 2.5 weeks, I got down here with the other pilot that is being trained on this, the first officer, and we flew in on a Sunday, got here mid-afternoon, and then the training started on a Monday, I guess 2 weeks ago. I'm getting to grow out the beard a little bit because I'm in training and usually can't grow it out that much, usually keep it trimmed back. So that's why the beard is growing out a little bit. So we're here at the Flight Safety Textron Aviation Training Center. Let's start by showing you what you get when you show up. The big Bible book. So we got the Citation Longitude. This is the pilot training manual. Obnoxious. Next item I have in my bag, a couple checklists. Normal procedures checklist. Don't use this very much because most of what you're doing is emergencies. The emergency abnormal checklist. Welcome folder. This has our schedule in it. Nice notebook. I actually take notes in class. Pretty good. The Citation Longitude flight training maneuvers and procedures. This has all of the profiles that we fly, takeoff profiles, things like that. Handy dandy cockpit poster. I've thought about it. Let me know if you'd be interested. I was thinking about giving this away to somebody. So, would you be interested in a giveaway for a Longitude cockpit poster? Can't buy that online, so I think it's a pretty good giveaway. I get the real thing, so hopefully I would not need the cockpit poster, but again, let me know if you'd be interested in a giveaway of that. And then finally we have some laminated cards. So these are all the airplane limitations, front and back, memory items, so we have certain items that we have to memorize. Most of this stuff, this is kind of what they ask on our exam. They'll go through all these questions and pull things from this. So we're expected to know pretty much by memory all this information, and it's just kind of general info on the airplane, pens, pencils, highlighters. And then if you do not want to carry around all these books, Flight Safety does have a really nice app, so I have access on my iPad to all the documents that I just pulled out of here in PDFs and things like that. This is what I use most of the time. This is what I was using to pre-study and stuff like that, because it's a lot easier than carrying around like 20 pounds of books. And a backpack. So maybe throw a backpack and a cockpit poster in a giveaway. So that's what you get when you show up to Flight Safety. So the way the days work, the training year here is kind of divided into half. So half of it is ground school and half of it is actually in the full motion flight simulator. Your first 6 days here, we were all in ground school. They do a really nice job of dividing it up now, where they have not full motion flight simulators, but what they call Integra devices. So it's the full cockpit, but it doesn't go up on full motion. It doesn't have all the switches and buttons, but it's a really nice ground-based trainer, has TV screens in front of it. I'll put some video on here so you can see what I'm talking about. Our first 6 days in here, the first 4 hours of the day from 8 to noon, we were in a classroom, and basically we just go through this book section by section. Start with the aircraft general. You just go through kind of a system overview of the airplane, crew alerting system, with avionic, electrical system, fuel system, power plant, our fancy big engines, putting out like 7,700 pounds of thrust each. So a lot of power, almost 15,000 pounds of thrust. Fire protection, pneumatics. This airplane can pump out 35-degree air, 35-degree Fahrenheit air. So Vegas in the summertime ain't gonna be an issue for us. Pressurization, nice 6,000 foot cabin at 45,000 feet. Oxygen, ice and rain protection, hydraulic, landing gear and brake, flight controls, lighting, pre-flight inspection, weight and balance information, flight planning and performance. So over those first days, we would cover 3 or 4 of those sections each day. Each one of them takes maybe an hour and a half, couple hours, go through the systems in detail. They have really nice presentations that have fully clickable cockpits and avionics systems and schematics. So we can flip a switch in the cockpit, and then they have this schematic breakdown of what exactly different mechanisms are doing inside the airplane. So we get an overview of how the actual system works. After the first 4 hours in the classroom, we take an hour for lunch. Luckily here, the hotel is less than a minute away, which is pretty nice. So we've been coming back here, just make some lunch here, kick back. And then when we go back after lunch, we go into the Integra devices, which are the ground-based devices with the cockpit, and run a sample scenario. These are not meant to teach us how to fly the airplane, more of the systems management. All the controls in there are the same as the airplane, and the instructor station, you can induce the same kind of emergencies that you have in the simulator. It's really valuable to be able to use these devices. So when you are in the full motion simulator, you don't have to kind of waste time learning the systems for the first time. You know where all the buttons are, you know how to work each device. And when you're in the simulator, then you can focus on actually manipulating the airplane and making sure that you are flying the airplane correctly without having to learn the systems as well. Each day we did a different scenario in the Integra device. The first couple days were pretty basic. It was just getting in the airplane like you would if it's just been sitting there overnight. Go from a complete cold, dark cockpit, do a full power up. You read every single checklist item. You go through every test, every single little thing. And when you're first in the Integra, it usually takes you about 30 to 45 minutes to actually just get the airplane up and running and ready for takeoff. Where in reality, in the simulator, or once you actually have the airplane, that's maybe a 5 or 10 minute process. So it's nice to have that time in there. And then as the days go on, we kind of introduced more situations, and they're more situations of teaching you how the systems work. So for example, in the Integra device, they can fail some electrical systems, they could fail some of your generators or fail a hydraulic pump, and it's more of a procedure for you to learn how to go into the checklist, find that procedure, and then you can kind of take that to the classroom and see how the actual inner systems are working. So that was the first 6 days, well, kind of 5 days, 5.5 days. On the 6th day, we go to the same ground school in the morning, the first 4 hours, but by that time we've gone through all of the systems. So you do a review of everything you've learned, see if any other questions have come up while you've been there that week, and then break for lunch. When we come back from lunch, we have test time. Our test is a 50-question test. It's not too hard. It's open book in the sense that in real life, you would have all these resources that I currently have available to use. It's not necessarily expected that you memorize every single detail of the airplane. So if there's a system question that if it actually came up in a flight operation, you would have these resources to look it up. There's still some challenging questions, but I don't know, it takes about an hour to complete and then you're good with ground school. After you complete that test, we were done at about 2:30 in the afternoon on Saturday, and we have the rest of that day off, and then you have Sunday off, which is really nice. On this trip, my wife actually flew out, which was awesome, and we took the car over to the Space Coast and went and stayed the night in Cocoa Beach and got to go to the SpaceX Crew Dragon launch, which was amazing to see. I had seen one rocket launch before, but never a SpaceX. Unfortunately, they did not land the booster back at Cape Canaveral. They landed the first stage out on the drone ship, but we had a lot of fun driving over to that side of the state and enjoying the rocket launch on the Sunday. And then starting Monday was our first simulator. So once you get to the simulator days, your days are a little bit shorter. You are only in flight safety for about 6 hours. So you come in, you have an hour-long brief, and then your simulator is 2 hours for each pilot, so for a total of 4. And then your debrief is usually about half hour to an hour. The first couple days in the simulator are actually kind of boring. Most of what you're doing is what you would call just normal operations. So especially your first day, you have another day where you go through the checklist from start to finish with a cold, dark cockpit, and then you pretty much just do a takeoff, a normal takeoff, no issues, fly around, do some simple approaches, do a couple missed approaches, practice your maneuvers in the airplane, and that's your day 1. Day 2, you add on a couple extra things. So on our day 2, we introduced engine failures for the first time. So we just did a kind of straightforward V1 cut. So a V1 cut is right at that airspeed that you're making your decision to go flying. You have an engine fail and you have to continue that takeoff. So the second day is when you start introducing those things, do some single engine approaches, but it's still not too challenging. Starting on day 3 is definitely when you start getting into more scenarios where you're throwing on a lot of failures, a lot of emergencies. You are starting to really grasp how the airplane flies and reacts and performs. So the instructors, they have pages and pages of failures that they can induce back there. And this is why training in a full motion simulator is so valuable as opposed to doing it in the airplane, is you can actually fail a system. It's a lot of crew working together. They give you scenarios that there's not necessarily one perfect answer, but they like to just see how you digest the scenario, how you talk about it with each other, and how you decide a course of action. There's a lot of following checklist procedures, but some situations the crew needs to make a decision on what is best at that time. They want to see you guys work through those scenarios and see if you can kind of critically think about a situation. I have one of our simulator scenario sheets here. This was simulator 5 and we were in Memphis. Anybody who has done training, you do so much at Memphis. They use Memphis because it has 4 runways. Every single runway has a variety of approaches to it, and it is a really easy place to train, but golly, I'm so bored of Memphis. Anyway, so this was Simulator 5. The objective, during this session, the client will be exposed to cold weather operations. The client should be able to master the anti-ice, de-ice operations during the session. The second objective is to expose the client to the check ride profile. They should be able to use the knowledge from the first 4 lessons to complete all ACS skill areas of operation included in this lesson. The client should be confident in their ability to operate the aircraft in an icing environment and accomplish the tasks included from the ATP ACS. So it has our position on here. So we're in Memphis holding at the signature ramp. The aircraft is approximately 33,500 pounds. We have 9,400 pounds of fuel on board. It's the first flight of the day, and it has our weather here. Some of the things that we did on this was stall spin awareness, bounced landings, V1 cuts, collision avoidance procedures, runway incursion avoidance, hot spots and NOTAMs, recognition of wing contamination to icing, pre-flight inspection, rejected low visibility takeoff, and then the low visibility V1 cut. Anyway, that's just an example of a sim session. Each sim session breaks down into different areas. One of the days is usually what they consider high, hot, and heavy. So that means you're at a high elevation airport, so they usually put you in the Colorado mountains somewhere. We chose to go to Aspen because we operate out of their lot and it's already challenging as it is. Hot, so it's warmer than normal, so the airplane doesn't perform as well. Same with when it's high elevation, you don't necessarily get as good of performance on the airplane. And then heavy, so you will be at the heaviest the airplane can be. So basically you have all the factors that reduce aircraft performance the most and make sure you can still operate in those. Then you have your cold weather day. So this is making sure you are taking all your icing precautions. Ice on an airplane is a very bad thing. Well, too much ice. This airplane and modern airplanes have really, really good anti-ice systems. So once they're turned on, no ice builds on the airplane. But if you had a failure on one of those systems or didn't recognize a bad situation, you could get yourself in a really bad situation. The first 5 days of simulators were all operating in different environments that are all an environment that we'll eventually operate in with this airplane. So it's progressively loading more and more onto you, more failures, more crew decisions, really testing out the crew to make sure that you will be safe operating this airplane. And then the 6th day, we did what is called a LOST, which is a line-oriented simulated training. Line-oriented situational training? I don't know. They call it a LOST, and we didn't get lost, so it's not that kind of lost. But it's kind of like a normal flight, quote unquote. So our first leg, the other pilot, he flew us from San Francisco to Santa Barbara. It was kind of a normal flight. We had a couple little checklist items that we had to run here and there. They would give us different failures that we would run, but nothing too extreme. Once we got down to Santa Barbara, we tried to do an approach in there. The weather was too low. And then when we went around, there was an engine failure. So we diverted down to LAX, got down there about 2 hours on his. And then when we switched seats, I did LAX to San Jose. Similar story, failures here and there, nothing too big. Got up to San Jose, of course couldn't land because that's just flight safety. Had an engine failure, diverted over to San Francisco, did a couple approaches there. Once again, we had Sunday off, so took an awesome day to not do much of anything. Actually finished editing my previous video, which if you have not watched, watch it, about how much it costs to fly corporate. So I just kind of took that time, watched some football, kicked back, studied for a little bit. And then today is Monday, so the day before check ride day. And in simulator today, we have an instructor that they have to kind of give their blessing that you are good for the check ride. So we did a mock check ride. So it was basically exactly what we're gonna expect. For the check ride, it's always at Memphis because that's just the easiest for the instructor. You go out, you do maneuvers in the airplane, which is a set of steep turns. We demonstrate stall recovery, and then we recover from unusual attitudes. After the maneuvers, you go in, you have 2 precision approaches, 2 non-precision approaches, a circling approach, and of all those, you fly a couple of them single engine, you have a V1 cut, you have an aborted takeoff, and then you're done. Definitely always get a little bit of nervousness for check rides, but luckily, I am pretty confident with my ability. It also helps that I worked at flight safety for about a year, and for a year I probably did 500 check rides or something. So I've been in the simulator a lot. So don't want to get overconfident, want to be cautious, but also not too nervous. Check rides are usually the same exact profile, and this airplane is amazing and performs super well. It makes it pretty darn nice with this airplane. Tomorrow we start our oral examination, so we have a 2-hour oral, which is just them asking us questions about the airplane, going over memory items and limitations and systems knowledge. After that, we do what's called a pictorial pre-flight. The way they do this is they just have pictures of all the components you would check. So we click through a pictorial pre-flight, make sure everything is good on our simulated airplane, and then after that, it's into the simulator. Probably take about an hour and 45 minutes for each pilot. Debrief, and then we have an airline flight home tomorrow, hopefully with a brand new CE 700 type certificate on there. Training can be a long haul. Again, airline guys are probably gonna just laugh at this, but kind of sucks being away from home for a couple weeks, 2.5 weeks. And luckily we get done at a time tomorrow that we can airline home. Otherwise we'd be staying another night, but go home, have a few days off, and sit around waiting for this beautiful airplane to be delivered. So let me know down below if there's any other questions about training that you have, and I will be happy to let you know. And then I need to figure out a way to give away a cockpit poster and probably a backpack. Please make sure you subscribe to this video, hit the like button, help the algorithm of magical YouTube, and make sure you subscribe, because once we get the Longitude, I will definitely be posting YouTube videos, doing day in the life, explaining the Longitude more. It's an amazing airplane. I am extremely thankful to be selected to fly this jet, and I can't wait to get my hands on it and bring all of you along for the journey. But you gotta subscribe to be part of the journey. So subscribe, like, turn the notification bell on, and I will see you soon.